Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday, June 3rd, and welcome to another Wednesday live edition of the Investing Systems Trading Service Show. I'm going to go over some I'm going to go over some of the open trades, maybe take a look at the pending trades, talk about the market for a couple of minutes, and so here we go. Check this out. Over the last few weeks here, we've got sort of a little breakaway gap and just kind of a steady run up, right? Not much of a pullback in here, to tell you the truth. So let's see. This was May 18th, so mid-May. I don't remember what the news was that morning. That may have been where there was hopes for a vaccine. Right. If I'm not mistaken, that little gap up that Monday morning was based on that company mRNA hopes for a vaccine for the COVID or whatever, and that kind of kicked off this latest leg of the rally. Interestingly enough, the market has basically rallied back to where sort of the vicinity where everyone was kind of freaking out to begin with after these few days down. I think this was like 1,000 points down in the Dow or something, and that's when the big sell-off kicked off, and everybody was kind of getting worked up in this area here. You can see that if I just put a horizontal line on the chart where we are right now and these couple of days here. So, the market was bouncing around the all-time highs here and basically kind of just ignoring what was going on in China with the virus. And then things started getting kind of nasty in the market, and boy, we had this down day, and that kind of was a shock to the system and kind of shocking. I remember all this, right? What I have circled here on this particular day, which was March 3rd, was when the Fed did their emergency 50 basis point rate cut right there. And so you can see we've rallied back to that level. Pretty amazing. I mean, pretty amazing. What's actually more amazing than this is the NASDAQ 100, which is literally, you talk about a V-shaped recovery. NASDAQ 100 is within spitting distance of an all-time high, right? I mean, it's almost right up against that high right there. So absolutely incredible. I don't know what the percentage. I don't follow this as closely as I do the S&P, but that's just absolutely incredible, and especially given the backdrop of where we are right now. With I believe on Friday the unemployment numbers are expected to show almost a 20% unemployment rate, right? And I saw like the Atlanta GDP Fed number. Atlanta Fed GDP number is supposed to be like second quarter GDP is like minus 50% or something, a 50% contraction, and so it's pretty amazing. But the market, they say the market is not the economy and the market's forward looking and all this good stuff, but I don't know. It's hard to, and especially with everything else that's going on, it's kind of difficult to. There's the Dow. The Dow's kind of the laggard here, right? Dow still got now the Dow has, broken through the 61.8 retracement, and it's still got a little ways to go before, it gets back to those levels, but pretty amazing. So obviously tech is the big winner. S&P S&P looks a little bit better than the Dow, and then the Dow and the same with the Russell. The small caps have been getting a little bit of buying here on this last leg too. But here's the funny thing: the Russell, boy, you got to go all the way back to summer of 2018 for the all-time high there. It came close over here. So anyway, hard to that's 2,000 stocks too. But mainly I follow the S&P, and extraordinarily resilient. We haven't seen like even, we had these couple periods here, this period of time back in April and May where we had like a couple of days where it would sell off and kind of spook everybody and make them think that, that the rally's over and we're going to get an actual pullback. But this is pretty extraordinary if you ask me. And I don't know. I saw something recently that said that the short interest is like the highest it's been since like 2015 or something. So, boy, I don't know. Anyway, so, this little pullback here in May and then this rally that we've been under has triggered quite a few stocks in to the open trades, and so I thought maybe we'd go ahead and take a look through the open trades. We'll start down here at the bottom. I always like to start because the oldest ones that triggered in are at the bottom, and then they work their way up. And here's one that just triggered in, a couple days ago, actually yesterday. So let's take a look at this. There's quite a few here actually. So we'll start off with LRN, which, as you recall, last week we talked about it. It's online education, right? It seems like a pretty good. I don't know. Kramer's got something he calls like the stay-at-home portfolio, or that's kind of his thesis or whatever. Is like stay-at-home stocks, right? And so I drew this trend line here to kind of point out where the stop was sort of hanging back under that trend line. Boy, look at that day where, and we've seen some of these recently. You get a market sell down, and then by the end of the day, it rallies back up. So I haven't marked the oh yeah, actually I hadn't marked the target on this, is what I was about to say. 25.50. I actually neglected to put the target on here originally, and so you can see that just over the past few days here. So let's see, there's where it triggered in, and so this is the it's a pretty nice steady, it's kind of like the overall market, just sort of a nice steady rally, and you can see how it's kind of pulling away from that trend line right now. But let me mark that on here just so we know that it tagged the target there. My opinion, it would not be a bad idea at this sort of juncture right here to go ahead and take the target on some of these. I mean, it really kind of just depends on what the chart looks like. So I don't know how that's going to sound on the show there. That's this new headset that I got is kind of weird as far as muting it. So anyway, yeah, kind of a crazy looking chart. This drop and then this sort of rise here. So yeah, I wouldn't. And what I was about to say, I haven't updated some of these stops as of last night. The update came in really late last night, and so I didn't go through and raise the stop. So I was sort of thinking that maybe this stop was gonna have trailed up, but it's still right there at 23. So anyway, this is it's pretty nice looking chart. I would expect after today for that stop to maybe trail up here a little bit. So, and of course these couple of pokes below that trend line have sort of skewed my trend line a little bit. But I will bet you if I put this on a candlestick, let's see, where's a good candlestick? There you go. That looks pretty good, right? Nice trend line on the candlestick pattern, kind of right under the body, ignoring that tail. So that actually works. Actually works pretty good. All right, so far so good. LRN. Let's look at this other one. For a while there, well, we had some technical issues for a period of time, and there was only like a couple of pending trades or whatever. But I believe that this was one of them, and so here's another one where the stop has trailed one time and is still sitting basically right here. So this was kind of funky. It gapped up over the trigger price a couple of times and then had this big pop. Now it's kind of fading back down. Kind of weird, REITs. this is, I believe that this particular company, Digital Realty Trust, specializes in like, it's like a REIT for server farms and that kind of stuff. Digital. So kind of interesting. Yeah, it's got like the little cup pattern, and now kind of forming a little bit of a handle here. And so this particular stock is going to need to get consolidate and bust higher. It's actually kind of a nice little pattern, right? Not a bad looking pattern at all. So far so good. Got the stop up here. Minimal, absolute minimal amount of risk here. We'll have to see what happens with that. So let's moving on. ConAgra. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. Look at this. This pattern here. Let me zoom out on this chart a little bit. Huh. Yeah, it's right up here at the highs again. You take a chart like this and kind of squeeze it down or whatever, and I see people do this. The scaling of the chart can kind of skew what you actually see, right? I see that a lot. I mean, I can make the chart appear to be, you know, a little bit different than maybe it is, but you look at it like that, boy, if this thing can bust out here, you could really get a nice move, right? It's consolidating sort of right under the highs here, and so it's kind of, and also the way that I have my screen set up here, it's kind of square, kind of a square screen, and so that's a pretty dramatic sell down and rebound. But if you look at it sort of from a longer term perspective here, I don't know what that was all about. Geez. Oh, well, that was at the end of 2018. You remember we had kind of sort of that sell off for no reason. And apparently this stock really got trounced at that point. But anyway, so consolidating right under the highs. If it can bust out through here, then it's looking pretty good. And so this little sort of pattern in the very short term is kind of nice, little dip here, rally, caught it right back on the way up, and so not looking bad at all. I see Gilead back on the open trades list. This is a really noisy stock. When I saw it trigger again, it did okay back over here, but it was a lot of, just a lot of chopping around. It had this pullback. I think I had a trend line drawn on here, so I had that pullback, and so now it had a pretty big pop, but now it's just kind of faded back down. So no telling what's going to happen with this thing. I kind of don't like. It's kind of a news driven thing or whatever, and it's just a very very even back here, it's just a very choppy sort of chart. So not extremely fond of Gilead here. Let's see, this one triggered in, looks pretty good. Looks like this was the FCN. Yeah, I think we might have looked at this one last week. But most of these stocks that have triggered, we did look at. Um, this looks like the initial stop, and it still hasn't moved yet. The price is kind of just floundering right around the entry here. It's not looking too bad though. Not looking too bad. Quite honestly, I can sort of see a spot here, which is above the trigger price now, that it's going to need to get through. So that's I don't know. I marked that in a different color because that's the trigger's down here, right? So the trigger was actually 122, which this particular day here it closed at 122.09, and so the next morning it gapped down just a little bit, went up through the trigger, and now it's just kind of hanging right around that area. And so what we want to see is obviously is a break in that direction. Again, that's a pretty nice tight stop there. No huge big deal. And so if for some reason it does fade down or whatever, It's not a lot of excessive risk there, so it's a pretty decent looking setup. Tell you the truth, it's not ideal because of the resistance up here, but at this point. But then again, this high right here kind of matches up with that high. That happened basically the day that it triggered, so it looks like it has a lot of potential to sort of cut back up. So we'll see what happens with FCN there. Moving on, General Mills, another kind of weird pattern where, I mean, really is a really nice pullback and then a couple of narrow range days and then a pop back up. And so it's sort of completed its cup and now it's kind of consolidating. Another one where you may see like a cup in sort of a handle form. And the issue with and there's a lot of stocks like this, but the issue with some of these setups right now is that with a lot of stocks up near their highs is that for this thing to really get anything going, it's going to need to bust out and make a new high. So, which is entirely plausible, entirely possible. Although, the market just had a run up, and so you're seeing some consolidation, and there's some rotation going on out there too, right? You probably heard them talk about the rotation on TV, and so you get these certain days where like the techs will underperform or outperform, or the FANG stocks or whatever. Oh, look, they got Campbell's Soup on CEO on CNBC right now. Yeah, and so sometimes like the defensive stocks, sometimes the defensive stocks are doing well, and I would say General Mills probably falls in the same category as Campbell's Soup, which is down a couple of percent today. It's kind of a defensive food stock. So, all right, next one up here. This is a beauty, Rollins. Um, Rollins Leasing. Is that what this is? Anyway, this one, nice pullback, perfect pivot low, turned the corner, kind of caught it here on the way up, and I hadn't actually marked the target on this one, so let's see, the target was $42, and so it basically in the last couple days here, sort of plowed through the target and is actually hitting a new high here. So looking pretty good, really. Mark that on here. Not bad, not bad at all. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this move came in that big long range day right here. Basically the day that it triggered in, right? Triggered in, ripped higher, poking at the highs now through the target. Let's see. As of last night, it was up like 7% from the entry trigger here. So I wanted to, yeah, trailing stop still sitting here at 39. I would imagine tonight after the update, this trailing stop will come up here to at least break even. So now that we got a couple of lows, and then today's low even higher, so that would make sense. So yeah, so far at all the open trades, this one is the one that really got some traction to the upside here. So let's move on. CTXS. I'm seeing a lot of this on these charts, where you had the pullback, little consolidation, and this kind of nice too. There would have been the day it triggered, and so this next morning here opened just a little tiny bit over that trigger price right there, and then a nice pop that day. But look, it's faded it all the way back down. So that's kind of a little bit unusual, but it is what it is. Sometimes you form that cup and then you get a little pullback right after. And so yeah, there was some big long range days there. Keep in mind that while the market has been going up, it's also sort of been a little bit dull, right? We had the holiday shortened week last week, and so the Friday before Memorial Day, I remember was just like really dull. And we've seen a lot of kind of sideways price action in the overall market and some real narrow ranges, like real narrow kind of choppy ranges in that. And so while it seems like the market, goes up every day or whatever, it hasn't been extremely robust. Although I will say that the breadth, I believe, is starting to spread out a little bit. And so moving on, we got Clorox, which, same sort of situation, pulled back, had that real nice sort of reversal and is rallying back up. And so this thing's sitting just basically right around the triggered in, just a couple days ago. It would have been actual trigger in on Monday at the open here, and so you can see it's just sort of hanging around there. Um, the stop hasn't moved yet. There hasn't been enough forward progress for the stop to trail up. Although it's a function of price and time, and so my guess is, even if it closed right here, my guess is that stop's going to come up a little bit, probably significantly. I mean, it's hard. I don't know the exact. I don't know the exact. What the algo is programmed to do, but my guess would be that right around 200, this thing to come up to 200 would seem sort of reasonable. Unless for some reason today's low was below these prior lows. So anyway, yeah, Clorox. That's strong chart there. This was pretty amazing move in Clorox here, where it just got that huge bid for a few days and then sort of right back to the main trend or whatever. But it's a beautiful uptrend, and the interesting thing is the similarity between this little current dip right here that triggered us in and how that looks right there. There's a very similar sort of pullback and then that like kind of reversal bar where it was lower and then like this day here that was a reversal bar that kicked it off. And so anyway, my point is that the last time this happened, it made a pretty decent move to the highs. Of course, everything is kind of news driven these days, but it is what it is. And so we just need a little forward If it does what it did last time, it'll be looking pretty darn good. So, and then it's only been open for a couple of days. So there we go. Getting towards the end of the list. I know there's a lot of open trades, but it's a function of the market cycle. And so, as I pointed out earlier, we've just had a pretty decent little up cycle in the market for the last few weeks here. So, pull back in Eli Lilly. Nice little pivot low bar, bounce off of it, and so it's just fluttering right around the trigger here. Not looking too bad. Again, stop looks very reasonable there. And last but not least, we got a tech stock. So it's interesting how let's see, we have in that list we got General Mills, Eli Lilly, Gilead, ConAgra, Clorox. Those are all kind of defensive sort of stocks, pharmaceutical, defensive food stocks. And so this looks like, well, Citrix Systems is a tech stock. This is a tech stock and looking okay here. Kind of, you can see we had a swing trade in this back here. Seemed to work out pretty well, and then got this little dip, and so then a big run up there. That's pretty amazing how some of these stocks just in a period of just a few days make a major move like that. And it's kind of an odd pattern. I wasn't extremely fond of this pattern when we looked at it last week, just because of how odd it is. But I mean, it can still work. It's kind of a really sort of weird kind of reversal there, and so there it is. Just not if I was looking when I'm looking through charts for setups or whatever with my eyes, it's not the type of pattern that would strike me as being extremely high confidence, just because I don't know what to make of it. It's kind of a rounding high, but anyhow, it is what it is. And So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, real quick, let's look around. Let's look through the pending trades here. This one's kind of choppy and erratic, but you get these stocks that they sell down real fast like that, and then they turn around and boom, explode right back to the upside. You can see it did something similar over here, right? Big sell off and then big turnaround, even back here, and so there's a lot of potential there. Like the look of that. So, and these are pending stocks, right? So, at this time, the trigger price is up here, like above all of this, above this sort of consolidation and congestion down at these lower levels. So that's actually a pretty nice setup, to tell you the truth. The only weird thing about, I can just envision this would be one where it would just rip right through the trigger price on a big long range bar, right? So I'd keep a close eye on this. Quite honestly, I mean, the system's very flexible, right? If you've been around a while and you've seen how flexible the system is and how you can trade it in a lot of different ways. This would be one to sort of keep on your radar. And I'll be honest with you, if you saw a day where it looked like it was putting on a long range, some volume and some action happening or whatever, this would almost be one that you could you could consider, you know, jumping in at the trigger price on the way up. Um, so, I mean, I hate to say that because it's not really kind of with the rules of the system, but sometimes, because it has a habit of having like these big explosive long range days up, and so just on the outside chance that because it could very easily just put on a big giant move up here and close at 37 or whatever one day, and so it might even make for a really good quick trade, just sort of busting through this. So, anyways, and then look at this one, mRNA. I thought I saw some news on this yesterday, and this is the stock that kicked off this whole big giant rally back here on Monday 5/18 because they were in the news with you know positive news on virus vaccine, right? And so this is kind of an interesting pattern here. And so as of right now, the trigger price is, and this trigger price on this may change. I mean, from day to day, right? These on the pending trades, the trigger price has changed from day to day, but right now it's sitting at 64, and so be interesting to you get a few more days of consolidation here. This could even come down a little bit, but this is another one that's kind of obviously news driven. I don't follow the news on this, and so there's been a lot of naysayers, and so I don't know. But here's the thing: is like this is a very news driven stock. You can see this sort of consolidation here, and then it exploded higher, and so this one has a lot of potential. Has a lot of potential. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. And like I say, it would not be a bad idea to keep your eye on that one. All right, moving down the list real quick. I don't want to keep going too long with this. So moving down the list, you got QDEL, which actually is kind of setting up pretty good. A little bit of nice little sort of pullback here. Needs to consolidate, turn higher, and quite frankly, it looks kind of pretty good to me. All right, so 177. There you go. So kind of like right now it's there's that pivot high there, and so the trigger price is just sitting like right above that little pivot high right there, and kind of fading down or whatever. But this looks like it's got some promise. That's that was an explosive move right there, and now it's just kind of faded back. It's closed the gap, and some consolidation out into the future, and a move higher. And this could come down too. Like if this stock continues to fade and consolidates lower, then this trigger price could easily come down. But right now it's sitting right over that pivot high. That's a pretty good looking stock, actually. Netflix. Can't tell you the last time I saw Netflix on the pending list, but there you go. Stock's obviously in in an uptrend. Just had a pullback in an uptrend. And there's your sort of pivot low reversal bar. And so Netflix is sitting on the pending list with the trigger sort of right above these recent highs here. So it wouldn't be a huge stretch to see Netflix consolidate and bust back out here. So that's worth keeping an eye on. Gold, another kind of unusual one. Yeah, gold's been kind of selling, gold, the ticker symbol's gold, but actual, the metal gold has kind of been selling down a little bit here recently. So there's a pretty nice little sell off. I think just by looking at the chart, you can imagine where the trigger price is. And Newmont Mining. So there's two gold stocks pending here, which is, and look at this. This is really unusual. Look at how tight the stock was in a nice uptrend. Everything was nice and tight and sort of orderly. And then this is the COVID virus madness reflected in a gold stock. And then, all the money printing and QE and all that good stuff, sort of really sent this thing going up here. And now it's kind of in pullback mode. It's kind of a toppy looking chart, but it is what it is. And so, my guess is that and if this thing keeps dropping, it'll just fall off the list. So I think between the two of them, it's kind of hard to decide which one of those looks better. I don't think either of them looks all that great, but it is what it is. So there we go. And then last but not least, Luminex. Yeah, there you go. I had marked this last week, right? And so basically we were looking for a close over $32, and look at how it poked at it. So that was on Monday, poked at it, but never closed above it. And so that's kind of, honestly, that's one of the reasons that, under most circumstances, under really the rules of the system say you wait for the close over the trigger price, which is 32 here. And this is exactly why, is because that's like Jeffrey says, that's the trade barrier. And so the stock needs to prove it can close over that, because it's a big resistance level, right? I mean, you don't have to be a C certified technical analyst to you don't have to be a CTA to see that that's a pretty nice resistance level there. And so there you go. Market's looking for a close, or the system's looking for a close over that resistance level and move up. And quite frankly, it's a pretty decent little chart there, consolidating here. Now, it did a consolidation here and then drop. And so you could have consolidation here and then another drop. And so that's why waiting for the close over the trigger is a good idea. So, but I kind of like the prospects for that, so I'd keep a close eye on that. So there you go. That's basically it. I'm gonna do a short show today, and we went through the open trades, which are looking pretty good. There's some the ones that have been open for a while have decent gains. This Rollins has been doing really good. So this one here that's been open for a while, and the rest of them are just kind of hanging around, up a little bit, a couple of them down just a little bit. And so but the market's extremely resilient. And so until here's the thing, is that every day you think, geez, with all the stuff going on in the world, and and the pandemic and the riots and all this and that, you think, geez, what is markets just, how can the market keep going up? But then again, it does. And so the market's kind of, The markets is the news says that the market is looking forward looking to economic for the economy to be getting better and that, and so that's apparently what it is. There may be a rude awakening at some point, but until you see it, I mean, until we see the market start to sell off again like this, um, there's no telling. I mean, every single time that we got one of these pullbacks in here, in my mind, I thought, okay, this is it. That was it for the rebound, and yet it just keeps going. And so that's why it's good to have a system like we have that is just totally, all it's looking at is the price action on the charts. It doesn't think about anything else. And so that's probably the best way to fly at this point. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for showing up, and I will see you here back next week.